Thank you all for joining us for the Double or Nothing Virtual Media Scrum, live from Daly's Place in Jacksonville. With us now is TNT Championship winner Cody. Please remember to raise your hand so we can call on you for your questions.
We are live.
We are live. Headset for Cody.
Oh,
Thank you. Cross pass here. Got hands, questions? You can hear Mandy.
Okay, great. Hello, Cody. The first question is from Mike Johnson.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Cody, how are you, sir?
Mike, I'm outstanding. How are you?
I'm good. So obviously there is a long history with the Turner broadcast family and the Rhodes family. So with all that lineage that we all know about, what does it mean to you to be the first TNT champion? And now that you are the champion, I also have to ask, what was your first thoughts when you heard about this belt being instituted into the company?
Well, I mean, you talk about TNT and you talk about wrestling and the Turner family networks and everything that Ted did, that Dusty, that Bill, that Eric did, and Sting, and just there's this lineage and this heritage. But Tony Schiavone brought up this really good point in our sit down interview where he named all these really great stats for me, like my 1,000th match by 28. And it was really special stuff, but they were like tenure stats. They were stats that they just didn't. It's not what you shoot for. And to be able to add to my legacy the very first at this, such a such a damn good feeling. And to come back and have Arn Anderson tell me, you know, now it's your time just started. Your time just started. And after all the time I've spent in, you think like, oh, good. Finally, I'm just really happy. My initial thoughts, this might sound so strange. The story is so uniquely linked from Turner and Dusty and Dustin and Cody. But my initial thoughts when I won were just about my mom. She's just, she's the one I have left. And I think she had it. She enjoyed it. So sorry. She enjoyed it. So I was happy. When you can please your mom, that's a good thing.
Great, thank you. The next question is from Alex McCarthy from TalkSport. Alex?
Hey, Cody. First of all, congratulations, my friend.
Thank you.
Really good match, really good. I just wanted to get your thoughts on how you felt Mike Tyson played his part in that match, because it felt like, you know, it would have been tempting to have him knock people out and all things of that nature. But, you know, I thought you and Lance put on a great show that made both of you look great.
Well, Lance is probably one of the top 3 people I've ever been in the ring with. We're not best friends by any means. The recruitment of Lance Archer to AEW, Tony Khan and QT Marshall were really, they were the ones who were on that search. And I questioned that search, and I have no questions anymore. It's one of the top 3 opponents I've ever had. I cannot wait to step back into the ring with him. A freak, hybrid, drug-free athlete, the things he can do, just that's what you want. That's what a wrestling company should be paying the big bucks for. And hats off to Tony and QT for finding him. As far as Mike being a fan of AEW since the initial Double or Nothing, it was really fitting that he was here for the sequel of Double or Nothing. And I thought it was, things get hairy out there. I think had Jake Roberts taken any further steps, but those fast hands of Iron Mike would have got to the old man. But Jake knew better. Special moment to have Mike there, and for so many reasons, but just surreal. I mean, that's the best way to really describe it. Him being out there is surreal. I've seen Mike Tyson every fight. I've seen him in the ring with Steve Austin, and tonight he handed me this, and that very just surreal. I don't think I'll wrap my head around it anytime soon.
Thanks. The next question is from Dave LaGreca, Sirius XM.
Well, Dave, you gonna ask a question here, brother?
Cody, can you hear me?
Yes, Dave, I can hear you and your dog barking in the background.
Congratulations, man. I know you put a lot of time and effort into each and every show, and everybody said how much fun this show was. And just tell us how proud you are of this roster.
The roster here, if you were in the Daly's place tonight, if you were able to see how the roster, even at social distance, how they were able to watch the show and their reactions, and also that aspect of watching it and saying, man, you can see it in their eyes. I want to be there. I want to be on that field, that itch. That's the real competition behind the other competition that you see. And that's such a good thing for a roster, such a motivating thing. I'm incredibly proud of the roster so far. I'm also incredibly proud of Tim Walbert's team, which is Keith Mitchell, Tim Walbert, Mark, Jamie, Kevin Sullivan, Jim Morris, and litany of names I likely forget, Denise, QT Marshall, Charlie Ramone. Our production team does not know the word no. They're just so talent friendly. One of the biggest things, and this is a side story, forgive my rant here, but elsewhere, I noticed there's this disconnect between production and talent. They talk like truck drivers to each other, and there's a lack of like family. And one of the first things I told Tony, and Tony is an absolutely wonderful boss who's instilled it, is that can't be that way here. We got to know each other. We got to be able to speak to each other. We got to help each other tell these stories in the ring. And man, no place on earth does it like AEW in terms of the symbiotic nature between production and talent. So I'm, of course, very proud of the locker room, but I'm incredibly proud of what they were able to put together production-wise. And that's all those names I listed, plus many more for this show, for Double or Nothing. It's the show you can't forget.
The next question is from Mark Raimondi from ESPN.
Hey, Cody, congratulations on a great show.
Thanks, Mark.
You guys have made the most of a very tough situation down in Jacksonville, no fans, and just everything going on in the world. How important has it been to, be creative during this time and kind of think outside the box?
It's been one of the most challenging times as a performer and competitor ever. And I scarily have gotten used to the non-fans, and I don't like that. I want to get back into arenas. I want to get back with fans. But Frankie Kazarian, he's had a couple of drinks. He comes up to me. He had a wonderful pay-per-view for himself, but also Frankie's a big leader behind the scenes. And he just said, hey, this is the time that wrestling's going to forget, but they're not going to forget what we did tonight. And he coined it so eloquently and apropos. This is a unique time. As a fan, and the young people who end up being wrestlers themselves go back and watch these matches, there's the albatross, there's the fact that there is no crowd, there's the question of why, there's the explanation. It's always this conversation. It will always be a conversation. But to be able to give them something, that's our obligation. You paid $50 for a pay-per-view in one of the most damnedest times our country's ever seen, so much division, and we're obligated. I'm obligated. It's my literal job to make you happy. And I'm sorry. I'm very happy with tonight.
Thanks. The next question is from Jim Barcelone from the Miami Herald.
Congratulations, Cody.
Thanks, Jim.
You mentioned Ted Turner, Dusty. You had Mike Tyson there tonight. You have Arn, you have Jake. Mm-hmm. How important was it to tell that story? Because for me, it felt a little old school in capturing that emotion with the heel dominating. And then you had the baby face coming back at the end and winning the title and just capturing that whole feel. Was that part of the mindset going in for this one?
Well, I think, not to be too inside, but I do think everything I do is old school. And I'm not really trying for that. It's just the wrestling style I prefer. I'm going to put it out there because I get really tired of hearing it. Myself and Matt and Nick and Kenny, the EVPs of the company, that bond is unbreakable. We don't have to be best friends. It's an unbreakable bond. And what they do, what Matt and Nick do in terms of the Deadpool style of wrestling and breaking the fourth wall, what Kenny does with the DDT inspired elements, and what I do with Crockett inspired and Dusty inspired elements, that's what's always made the freaking group work. We don't have to agree. We're not supposed to, actually. We're supposed to give you these different flavors. And I watched, the Stadium Stampede. I watched it when it was put together, and I watched it just now, and watching people watch it is so damn enjoyable. And you mentioned old school. That's the flavor I like to bring. It's the wrestling I love the most. And I hope I'm getting the best I've been at it. For me, I have to improve. At this point, more than ever, I have to keep improving. And I hope I can continue to do so.
And the last question for Cody is from Bill Pritchard from WrestleZone.
Hey, Cody, how you doing?
Hey, Bill, how are you?
Good. So the other day you said that you didn't get a chance to look at the title yet, and now that you've seen it, I just wanted to, get your thoughts on what it looks like, and maybe if you know any of the design cues that, or anything comes to mind when you look at it from the past.
Well, the part that is the most special, and Tony Khan pointed out to me, is the mansion. It's Ted's. And if you've driven by Techwood and you see the studios and Sam Linsky and Brett and Kevin Riley and all these wonderful individuals who have believed in us and given us this new home, this is the mansion. And the guy hand painted it. And I know Tony has already told you all this already, so it's not breaking news, but this isn't even the final belt, the actual silver plated title, which has the shine finish and the extra details, due to the COVID and the pandemic. We didn't have it here, and we will have it maybe even as soon as this week's Dynamite. But man, I don't know if I want it, because this is the one I got handed, and I'm sorry, I'm very somewhat emotional this evening, but this is the one I got handed, and I think it's the coolest damn thing I've ever seen.
Thank you, Cody.
Thank you. I'm done, right? I can leave?
You're done.
Thank you, Mandy, so much. Whoever's up next will be awesome. Thanks to Leva and Raph for setting this up. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Next up is AEW World Champion Jon Moxley. And the first question will be from Nick Hausman from WrestleLink. So stay tuned, Nick.
Hello.
They can see you. You can't see them, but you can hear.
All right. Oh.
First question will be from Nick Hausman.
Can you hear me? Am I on this?
Yep. Stay tuned for a question from Nick Hausman.
The belt on the back.
John, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, what's up?
Hey, John. Hey, thank you very much for taking the time.
What's up? I'm trying to get the belt in the background. It's
No
behind
problem.
me.
Well, I wanted to get your thoughts on the debut of Brian Cage tonight. He seems to have an AEW title shot in the works. What do you think of Cage?
Yeah, they sure aren't getting any smaller, are they? Christ, hell. Yeah, he looked, from what I've seen, really impressive. Obviously, I've seen him in the ring before. One of those dudes who just defies all physics and logic is, not unlike Brody Lee, just an incredible athlete, can do things a guy like that size shouldn't be able to do. And That's a whole new can of worms, man. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But he's an exceptional talent. So I don't know anything about him personally or what his attitude is. He's now aligned with Taz, who is everybody knows Taz's personality. He's if he's anything like his. If he's anything as a manager like he was as a competitor, that it's going to be an aggressive situation. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Okay, thanks. The next question is from Darren Paltrowitz from Sports Kita. Darren?
Hey, it's Darren. Sorry about that. Thank you very much for your time. And two-parter for you, John. The first one is, besides winning the match tonight, what was your favorite moment of the night? And the second thing is, who is the best Jerky Boys character?
Geez, why can't I think of his name right now? Oh, come on. I'll answer the first question. Definitely the best moment of the night for me. I saw snippets of the show. Tomorrow or tonight, I'm going to go back and watch the entire thing all the way through. I was, getting my own mental and physical preparation and warm up going on most of the night. So I only saw snippets and bits and pieces of the show. But from what I understand, it was, it seemed everybody, right now, everybody at AEW is a team, even guys that are my rivals, technically, still we're teammates, we're all here to make AEW success and to bring, entertainment to wrestling fans and inject new energy into the wrestling business and bring new fans in. And that's basically all of our goals at the end of the day. So right now, backstage after the show ended, it feels like we just won the Super Bowl. We put on, a hell of a pay-per-view top to bottom, and, everybody's just jacked up and hyped up and high-fiving. We feel like we just, won a game and when we were an underdog, during a pandemic where, we can't have, a regular crowd in the building. We're in a strange situation on these safety protocols. So, kind of with our backs up against the wall, my back kind of up against the wall tonight against Brody Lee. I felt a lot of motivation tonight because, not only the personal situation between me and Brody Lee, but, you want a world title match to be a big thing with a clear number one contender with 2 months of build up and a backstory and a big thing. And, this is just a 3-week thing. And, Brody, to his credit, stepped up on a 3-week notice when he could be at home just waiting until the world goes back to normal to make his debut. But he jumped right into the fire in a dangerous match against me, and he rolled the dice at Double or Nothing, and he came up short. But I don't think he really has anything to be ashamed of. That was the toughest match I've had in AEW. At certain points, I really was concerned that I was going to lose, and that's the championship mindset. That's for the first time in AEW, and I felt like I was drowning and I couldn't get out of water, and I was frantically swimming for air. And that's a championship mindset, is you absolutely refuse to lose and thrash and kick and hold your breath until your eyeballs are popping out until you get a breath of fresh air. And when you get that little opening, you take it and you win any way you can, and you find ways to win, and you find way, that's the only message I can give to people, under these circumstances as world champion. There's a lot of people out there who are having a lot of curveballs thrown at them. They're going to have to dig themselves out of financial holes and adapt their businesses or their jobs or their situations to how the world has changed. And, when you get strange curveballs thrown at you like Brody Lee or whatever, and you're getting power bombed and thrown around the ring and your stage is breaking and you're crashing through and shit's just going bad, you got to find a way. You got to find a way to win and to find a way to succeed and refuse to let anything bad, win the day. You got to find a way to succeed and get what you want out of life. And the best moment of tonight for me personally was, this man disrespected me. This man stole my property, and to see this man who disrespected me and stole my property, and to leave him laying unconscious and bloody and take my property back and casually stroll out of the ring and show everybody in the world what happens when you cross me, that was an extremely gratifying feeling.
The next question is from Dave Meltzer from Wrestling Observer.
John, how you doing?
What's up, bro?
Not too much, not too much. I was just wondering, like, look back at, or look forward, actually. Who would you like to wrestle for the championship if you had your pick? And it doesn't have to be one name, but like a couple of names that you would be looking forward to on this roster right now.
I think, the last two, first two matches I had kind of, for short, quick 3-week notice, kind of curveball kind of scenarios, and did everything in my power. It's cool because, I have the control here to like take, this is what we got, and I can turn into something good and as best I can. And, but like in the long term, this is about, playing the long game, thinking about the big moments. Those don't just come on 3 weeks notice. Those come on, this is a thing that burns and simmers and sizzles, for a long time. And then, even like, me and Jericho was a long, slow burn from Double or Nothing last year to Revolution this year. And, obviously, I don't think that right now the, Kenny Omega is in a tag team, in the tag team division. I don't think the chapter is closed on me and him. He's one of the best big match wrestler in the world. And, he brings that big match feel. I think Hangman Page, who's also right now competing in the tag team division, who's got momentum behind him, and he's growing into his, what he's going to be. He's going to have that moment where he really steps into being like the man kind of thing. And, that might be at my expense one day, Cody Rhodes, who's, kind of could be a generational rival kind of thing for me. We're cut from the same cloth, but we're kind of two sides of the same coin. You won't find me wearing a suit, but, we still have the same passion for wrestling and think of things a lot similarly, and bring that. We're two guys who bring that big match feel, and that could be a huge match. And, and there's, obviously, MJF's, coming up, and, me, I want to wrestle everybody. Cause it's like I don't want to just be at the top of the mountain and now it's all good. Like, no, I want to like get to the top of the mountain and now clear everybody. I want to clear out the division, so to speak, and be like the absolute last man standing. And I relish the opportunities to get in there with a guy like Brody Lee, a big monster, athletic, big man, and see what we can do. Relish the opportunity to get in there with Jake Hager, an All-American, an undefeated heavyweight MMA fighter, see what we can do. With a Darby Allin, who's a high-flying dude, with a Sammy Guevara, with a Joey Janela. All these different guys bring all these different elements. And I think I can kind of, do it all, save for, a double backflip. I can pretty much do anything and adapt to any style. And, it's just so much fun to just have different types of matches with different types of opponents, so I want to get in the ring with everybody. But I think, those guys I mentioned are the big matches. But ultimately, it's whatever the fans want to see, and you want to, whatever the big names and the marquee names are, that's who I want to be matched up against.
Thanks. Next up is Brandon LeClaire from Pro Wrestling Torch.
Hey, John, I just wanted to congratulate you on what was a really, really good title match and something that really, I think, subverted the expectations that people typically have for a pay-per-view title match. Thought the end of the match was really cool. The spot through the staging and everything came off really well, and it's just something really different, something different from the typical title match. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on the general feeling out there when you are working with this in-house audience, so to speak. It's a weird time for pro wrestling. It's a weird time for you guys to be out there. But AEW has done this really cool thing and put people out there to kind of give you guys that audience type reaction. Just wondering how it differs for you from a traditional audience, knowing it's, your peers rather than, the fans that are coming out. And how important it is, really.
Well, it's different than a regular audience. It's 10 times better than having nobody in the building and just having that dead, sterile feel. That's really tough. You know, you can have that boiler room brawl kind of match once in a blue moon and it's cool and unique, but every single match every week, that's like, oh man, it's hard to watch sometimes. It's hard to participate in. It's hard to get up for. You know, it's different. But with the way we put, you know, a lot of people in the back, kind of socially distance out, people in the upper deck, there's energy in the building. There's, you know, we had Vitor Belfort and Dan Lambert down there in the crowd. We have Vicky Guerrero down there. We had some of the wrestlers down there. So it's just that bit of energy just makes all the difference in the world. You know, it's not quite the same as like, as you know, 20,000 people going nuts and knowing you're taking them for a ride kind of thing. But it definitely helps, you know. It's almost kind of like and having your kind of peers out there with you, you know, we're all, you know, everything's better when everybody's a little bit friendly, competitive with each other. Everybody wants to kick ass and have the best match possible. And, you know, you don't want to go out there and you'd almost rather not want to have a crappy match in front of your peers because they'd be like, oh, what's up, dude? I'm going to take your spot. Especially me at the top of the hill. You know, I got to go out there and be like, nah, man, this is the kind of effort you got to put in kind of thing. So it's almost kind of like, you know, like high school wrestling challenge matches where you're like, you know, you're surrounded in a circle by the team or something, you know, it's like a team atmosphere. And like I said earlier, you know, that's what we are. It's like a team here. So that little bit of like competitiveness to like show up your peers, you know, kind of is a kind of cool energy to kind of have some fun with.
Last question from Carlos Toro from Fightful.
Hi, John. Thanks so much for taking time to talk to us. Congrats on the title defense. Obviously, you guys have done these types of shows on Dynamite for the last couple of months, really. But with this being on pay-per-view, was there perhaps more pressure or motivation, whatever word you want to use, to sort of deliver a show-stealing performance, even though it's been the exact same setting or a similar type of setting that you guys have been dealing with for quite some time now?
100%. You know, you want to, if they're going to pay a little more, you got to give them a little more, and you got to make sure that they know that an AEW pay-per-view, they cannot miss it. You know, whatever they have to do, you know, if we're asking them to pay money for it, it's because this is going to be good. AEW pay-per-views are the top of the line pay-per-views, and to have the responsibility to main event that is huge. And you know, you're going to get just incredible action and different kinds of action, and everybody's looking to steal the show every single night. And it's just like AEW pay-per-views can't miss. We have to keep it that way. So, you know, you definitely bring out the little bit of extra, you know, every AEW pay-per-view is like a WrestleMania feel in the back. Like, it's like, this is game time. This is huge. You know, you bring out the little bit of extra, you bring in the new gear or whatever. I've been trying to get new gear, but this pandemic's making all the shipping and everything, so my new pants didn't come. But my sick Bret Hart jacket with, instead of the I tried to find like those like epaulette things, but I couldn't like get those in this weird situation. But the dude here, Charlie, shout out, he made barbed wire epaulettes. So I had like kind of a Bret Hart themed, barbed wire themed sick jacket that was way too heavy and way too hot, so I only had it on for about 30 seconds. But I hope people enjoyed that. But, you know, you definitely put in a little bit of extra effort when, you know, you're on pay-per-view, especially when you're on AEW pay-per-view, you know, because we're trying to gain and maintain the goodwill of the fans. That, like, if we're going to ask them to pay money, they know they're going to get, like, an incredible show. And personally for me tonight, I was extra motivated. You know, I wrestled Brody a bazillion times. I could wrestle him in my sleep, but this is a different, you know, Brody Lee's different thing now. And, you know, I'm a different thing now. So like, we wanted to be new, but also, you know, this is a month ago, this is exactly how I envisioned tonight's match. I called it a hailstorm of violence because I just knew that was exactly what it was going to be. Just a fucking, here we go, and just boom, destruction, over. And it's exactly how I envisioned it, and it was a very gratifying feeling. And you know, yeah, just being kind of part of a triple main event kind of thing, and only having a 3-week build kind of thing is like I was like, oh, screw this. I'm gonna go out there and we're doing something tonight, like for sure. Like, so I had that extra bit of chip on my shoulder tonight, which is such a nice feeling to have, you know.
Thanks very much, John.
Thank you. All right. That it?
Okay, joining us now is Tony Khan, President and CEO of AEW. And the first question will be from AJ at AJ Awesome.
And you're already on.
Oh, great. Hey, guys. Hey, guys.
Your first question is from AJ Awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's good to, yeah, that's great. I'm glad you're the first question. How are you?
Good.
Great. Thank you for watching the show.
It was very fun.
Thank you, AJ. I'm sorry about some of the language.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Did you like the show?
Yes.
Good. What's your question?
If you do cash in the poker chip, or do you just do a match? I mean, if you do cash in the poker chip, what are the rules for cashing it in?
Well, you're going to be the person to break the news. I want to make sure AJ Awesome Show gets the credit for breaking the news that we're announcing here for the first time that it's going to be Jon Moxley versus Brian Cage at Fyter Fest. And this week on Dynamite, you're going to get all the details about Fyter Fest. But Mox will defend the title against Brian Cage at Fyter Fest. Brian Cage, of course, debuted tonight and won the match with Taz. And so that was the surprise. And you're the first person to ask it. So you get to break the story that the winner of the casino ladder match at Double or Nothing receives a title shot at Fyter Fest. Thanks, AJ.
Thanks. The next question is from Joe from the New York Post.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Tony. How's it going?
Very well, thank you.
Obviously, we're a year into AEW now. With some of the new faces and obviously the bigger guys that you have now in Cage and Archer and Brody Lee, did this feel like a little bit of a different roster? And what's the challenge of bringing in three big guys kind of in a very small window of time here?
There's a lot of, I mean, I could go on for a long time, so I'll try to go on for a medium amount of time to answer your question. They're all really important guys and they're all really important stories. So you asked about Brody, Lance, and did you ask about, and Cage? Is that Brody, Archer, and Cage? Are those the three you asked about? Sorry, did Joe get muted? Sorry. Yeah, anyway, they've all been really important to us. In different stories. They bring different dynamics to the roster, and I don't want to like lump them in together as just like, you know, big guys. I think they all are very special in their own way, and I could talk for like 20 minutes about each of them. So I think, but they've all come through for us. And if you want to ask, I can gladly talk about anybody individually, including those guys. Thanks, Joe.
Next question is from Mark Raimondi from ESPN.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Tony, congratulations on a great show.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that.
I just wanted to ask you about the Stadium Stampede match. I know that it was taped yesterday, but what kind of limitations, if any, did you guys have on the field? And can you just take me through how a match with so many moving parts kind of gets laid out and shot?
It was the work like a great film, I think, of a lot of people. I'm glad you asked about the Stadium Stampede, Mark. We're all really proud of it. Everybody at AEW, we all took a hand in laying it out. It involves like a lot of people's ideas, and the fact that my dad and the Jaguars organization were kind enough to provide us access TIAA Bank Stadium to make the Stadium Stampede a signature match of ours. We all put in ideas. We all sat down. The big spots in the match, like literally like, Chris, Matt and Nick, Kenny, Matt Hardy, myself, we all put multiple ideas and multiple big spots in the match, which like you'll probably, I hope it is a famous match that people talk about. And I think to us, it could be a signature match to us. I hope the Stadium Stampede can be really a signature match here in AEW and something people will always remember. And like, when a band puts together a song and everybody has a part in putting it together, I think that was this. And we all had a lot of fun putting it together, especially because it was the first time some of us had been together like in a couple months. So it was like really fun. We hadn't seen Matt and Nick, especially Nick, in over 2 months. And then obviously with, Kenny and Chris and Matt Hardy, we've all been together all the time with Sammy and the Inner Circle guys. So it was a lot of went into it and a lot of ideas. Chris is incredibly creative. And obviously the Bucks and Kenny, you see on Being the Elite every week, and they had a lot of great stuff. And we just had a lot of fun. So I'm sure Chris is going to do a lot of podcasts talking about what went into it and the process and all the time, and a lot of people who helped. And there were so many people from the JAGS organization that were very kind in helping us get it. And frankly, in this climate, I really am very grateful to everybody that came in and was a part of the show, and everybody that watched the show, because it looks like it was a very successful show. And I'm really glad to see that in this climate. I know, it's hard that not everyone has a lot of disposable income right now, and I really appreciate it. It looks like a good number of people were able to come in and support us on this one. I really appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
The next question is from Connor Casey from Comic Book.
Ooh, hey, Connor, I'm sorry. I've been interrupted by one of our casino ladder match participants. I'm sorry. By the way, I tried to explain the rules of this match like 200 times at least to Orange Cassidy, and he did not get it. And I thought you, despite the fact you didn't really understand the match, that's how good a wrestler he is, that he could have won the match. He's also a great manager. He's one of the most successful people, one of the most unlikely success stories in wrestling, I think. Somebody who's really come on. He's a very special wrestler. Thank you for coming in. I'm sorry for interrupting you. What was your question?
Yeah, what was your question? By the way, Tony, did I win the match?
No.
Oh.
It's perfectly fine. And tell Orange, thank you for joining us on this call. Tony, like you were talking about earlier about the Stadium Stampede, based on everything I've seen on Twitter, I think this match went over incredibly well. I'm curious, based on the kinds of matches we've seen just in wrestling in general these past few months, what are your thoughts on cinematic matches? And do you think they have a future?
I think like everything else in wrestling, a smart man I once heard say, he's smart about some things and other things he's not so smart about. But I once heard somebody who knows some really great things about wrestling, and I used to think was a great mind for wrestling. I heard him once say that nothing, when it's done great wrestling, nothing's better. And when it's done badly, nothing's worse. And I think that's true of cinematic matches too. I think if you do something great, and I hope people think the Stadium Stampede was great. I'm glad you guys have been very favorable about it. And I think that's true of cinematic matches.
How does this work?
I'm glad you're really very talkative lately, I gotta say. Can I,
Don't
the
watch
next question.
Shot at Brandy.
Yeah, I heard you were Shot at Brandy, guys. It's a great show. Next question, please.
Next up is Jonathan Snowden from Bleacher Report.
Great writer. John, I want to tell you, I don't know if, did Moxley tell you, did you talk to Moxley on here, by the way? I'm curious. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your question, but he loved your Ken Shamrock book. He's been raving about it. Moxley put over this.
Who wrote a Ken Shamrock book?
This is the guy asking the question, John Snowden.
Did he really?
He's a great writer. Yeah. John, what do you got?
Get out of my way, John.
So, Tony, I thought the Stadium Stampede was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
Thank you.
One of the most dangerous stunts you guys have done was the finish, Kenny Omega's one-winged angel that was maybe a 15-foot drop. I'm wondering what kind of safety precautions went into doing that, because
it would have been very difficult if it wasn't a cinematic match to do something like that. But because of the nature of the Stadium Stampede, and we were able to do things, It's one of the silver linings of being able to do things like this and not doing everything in front of a live audience. Would have been really difficult to do something in a safe environment like that, but it was safe. But that being said, no amount of preparation and we did a lot to make it safe, but that still two of the greatest professional wrestlers in the world, and only two of the greatest wrestlers in the world could have pulled that off, which is true of many of the things that happened in that match, including that.
Have you guys seen Tony's guns?
Thanks.
Next question is from
Should I be here more?
Dave Meltzer at Wrestling Observer.
Yes. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Tony, how you doing?
Really, really well. Really well.
Wait, this is Dave Meltzer?
This is
It
the
really
Dave
is.
Meltzer. It is the Dave Meltzer.
I think Dave hates me.
No. That is not the
It's
case.
not. You learn and adapt.
That is true. That is,
That's
see,
true,
again,
that's true, that's
that is true, which is the difference between Dave and the person I was talking about before. Thank you. Dave, what were you saying?
I haven't asked the question yet, but I was wondering, as far as like who I really thought that like a lot of the guys underneath, like especially like I think MJF, Jungle Boy, and Hikaru Shida really, I thought they all really like elevated themselves with the show tonight, and I was just wondering what you thought as far as who were the stars of the show besides the obvious ones.
I think a lot of people stepped up in the ladder match, and we were in a really tough position from the beginning of the show, because I think in the ladder match, like Phoenix was like a really important wrestler and is one of the best wrestlers in the world. He doesn't want to hear that.
I don't care about that.
Yeah, he definitely does not want to hear that. But he is going to be a huge part in that match. So I think all the people in the ladder match stepped up, and including Orange Cassidy and all the participants in the ladder match. I thought, like you said, in the title matches, everyone in the title matches, I thought really stepped up. And I thought that obviously the Stadium Stampede, like Sammy was amazing in the Stadium Stampede. I thought it was great to see the Young Bucks back. And Kenny's, I think Kenny's the best wrestler bell to bell in the world. And then the Inner Circle is, to me, a great faction. And I thought this was like a great night for the Inner Circle. And Sammy stepped up and did so many things. Chris is a genius. Here we go. See, the magic of this app is that I saw that coming. Otherwise, you would really knock me off. But instead, I'll go on. And so there was, and I thought Brody Lee came in and in a position where based on, us having to do the shows all of April in a very short span, that like he really stepped in too and had a great match and in a position on the card, a tricky position in the card to do the world title match. And he was great. And I hope I'm not leaving anybody out. I know it's a long-winded answer as it is, but really, and people were great. And all the people in the building that, were here, and everybody who came in and got tested and made a lot of noise, from the company and our family and friends. It was really pretty great.
All right, I think I should leave, Tony.
You can. You shouldn't forget your sunglasses. But you've been a great help to this. And Dave, I hope that was. Who did you think, Dave? I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't say Jungle Boy and MJF, and I should have said Jungle Boy and MJF because they went out and absolutely tore the house down. Again, there were so many great things that happened on this card, and the people who went on early, like the people in the ladder match, and Brian Cage debuting, and obviously MJF and Jungle Boy just really tore the house down, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give them a ton of praise also.
Right, Dave? Yeah, that's right, Dave.
That's a long answer. Sorry, Dave.
All right, I'm out of here.
Sorry, thanks, Orange. It's great, great debut, great ladder match debut for a guy who didn't understand the rules of a ladder match.
Yeah, well, if you explained it better, I would have had a better time.
I tried my best many times. And who's next?
Next question is from Mike Johnson from Pro Wrestling Insider.
Yes.
Hey, Tony, how are you?
Good, Mike.
So you guys had a lot of curveballs thrown at you in the last couple of days in terms of injuries. How much did that change the creative trajectory of the show, and where are we with injuries? When are talents being cleared to return? Is everybody who worked tonight okay? Like, in terms of health, obviously there's only so much you can talk about with HIPAA, but where do we stand in terms of injuries and how that changed the creative plans tonight?
Well, the people in the case who there were huge curveballs, frankly, and I'm really grateful to, obviously in the Chris Statlander and Penelope Ford match, they were both thrown out there without Britt Baker being here, and grateful to all of them. And then with Phoenix, like I mentioned earlier, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how great Phoenix is. We did miss him. And Joey was great to come in and step in. And I asked Joey to come in, as he alluded to, and do something great. And I thought the guys went in and in a new concept that I was pretty jazzed about, that I'd kind of put together for this pay-per-view. I thought it was a cool new stipulation match, and I hope it can be a part of the pay-per-view. So with Phoenix and Britt being out, frankly, we dodged bullets on both of them. I'm really glad to say, whenever there's an injury on a show, you're always like terrified. And in both these cases, we were really worried. And we weren't sure coming out of the show what the status of either of them was. And we would never false advertise. If it's in our power, I never want to. We didn't know until yesterday for sure what was going on. Britt will be out probably, we think 6 weeks, maybe. I think less than 2 months, ballpark, is a good estimate. She'll be addressing her medical situation on Wednesday on Dynamite. And then we've got Phoenix, where it was close. Like, he's not, he's limping. And I don't think he would have been able to give 100%. Also, it wouldn't have been smart to put him out there in that situation. And we made a judgment call, but I think he'll be back soon. He's been on great. And yeah, I really appreciate him and everybody who's come in. And like I said, I thought on Phoenix and Britt specifically, we dodged a bullet, and it did. We were down to the wire on those, and for sure it was tricky, but we didn't have to change a ton of the show. Thankfully it was, and we were really lucky that we had great substitutes with Joey and Penelope.
Next up is Kristen Ashley from Bell to Bells.
Okay.
Hi. Hi. So I was at the AEW Heels Party yesterday, and the majority of women there, when they were polled, said they wanted to see a women's ladder match. With Shida as the new champ and a veteran of hardcore matches, are those type of matches on the deck for the women in the future?
I definitely think that's a possibility. Yeah. I think we just did a ladder match tonight, and obviously one of the best matches we've ever done, was at All Out, and it had been a while since we'd done a ladder match. I think the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers was one of the best matches we've ever done, and I really enjoyed the ladder match tonight. But definitely, when the time is right, I absolutely would love to do a women's ladder match, and I think we'd really have a great roster for that. And I think Kenny's got a great mind for these things, and I'd love for us to take a crack at that. I think we'd have a lot of fun with that one, putting that one together and putting together a great roster of women's wrestlers. And I think we have great women's wrestlers that would have a great ladder match. So definitely. And I think Shida would be really compelling. And she's a great champion. I think her title shot's been a long time coming, and she, really came through. It was a great match. Thank you. Thanks for going to the AEW Heels thing. Thank you. I'm really learning a lot. And, I can't say, I'm really glad that I've heard good things about it, and people really enjoyed attending the event. And for everybody that put together, and Brandy and the team of ladies at AEW that worked on it, they worked hard on it, and I'm really glad they've gotten such a good reception to it. Thanks.
Next up is Sean Lalos from Monsters and Critics.
Great. Hi. Hey, Sean. Do we have Sean muted? Do we unmute Sean?
Hello?
Hey.
Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
Okay, perfect. It looked like my Zoom tried to cut out.
All good.
I wanted to talk to you about the MJF Jungle Boy match.
Great.
For a long time, I've really thought, Cody talked about old school wrestling. And it seems like MJF is an old school heel. Jungle Boy seems to be like the perfect old school baby face. These guys are 22, 23 years old. Talk a little bit about their performances, especially when they're against each other. Someone on Twitter tonight compared it to Steamboat Savage, which or a
That's-
young Steamboat Savage. Talk a little bit about these two guys and their future and the future of AEW in their hands.
Well, that makes me feel really good. That's literally the highest praise you can get when it comes to that kind of wrestling and that kind of rivalry. I think when you talk about rivalries and in-ring bell-to-bell wrestling, that's like exactly what you want to hear about young wrestlers and also guys that were married to each other at various points in their careers, guys that worked together in the late 70s and mid-Atlantic, some of the greatest stuff you'll see, and guys that worked together in the early 80s and then had reconnected in the mid 80s and then were apart and did some of the greatest stuff ever, but then reconnected in the late 80s and again in the early mid 90s. And it's like some of the best stuff you'll ever see. And if these guys are able to do that, and I think they'll both be here a long time. I think it's no secret that they're both signed here through the end of 2024. And they're really important to us. They're both really important talents for us. And I think keeping them together, as a rivalry, when you find guys like this that are, you think are young, potential main event talents, potential world champions, and they have this kind of chemistry, and they haven't wrestled a lot outside of AEW, which when they had that kind of chemistry, when they first connected here before this, it was really special. And I was shocked that they hadn't done much together. We were on live TV and they'd only done a couple things together. And some stuff, based on where they were on the time, I told them, it's because I keep the times. I told them they were going to be pivoting a little bit. And they adjusted to it like total pros. And then for guys their age, I think these are like probably like two of the smartest, most instinctive, highest upside like wrestlers in the world. So to hear you compare them to Flair and Steamboat is like music to my ears, frankly. And that makes me feel great. Thank you. And that should make Max and Jack feel great, and they're both students of wrestling in their own way, and that's awesome. Thank you. That's what we were going for, and they've done a lot of stuff together. And before the shutdown, and they were both, obviously Max in the East Coast, Jack in the West Coast. That was stuff we were going towards, if you remember. So it's good to be able to get back to it and do this like we always wanted to.
Next up is Ryan Satin from Collider.
Great. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going, Tony?
Good, man. How are you?
I am doing great, thank you. So there were rumors that Brian Cage signed with you guys back in January after becoming a free agent, but then he had to undergo surgery due to injury. Now that he's actually made his debut with you guys, can you talk about how long he's been signed to an actual deal with you guys?
That's true. Brian signed, and he was like injured when he signed. And I think, frankly, I heard there were people who were like, you pay, that's crazy. You would pay this guy good money, and this whole time he's hurt and he didn't get hurt in your company. But I really like Brian, and I really believed in him, and I had this plan for Brian, and I wanted to do this with Brian and Taz all along, and there was a method to it, and he wasn't going to be ready to go until around Double or Nothing, but I always knew Brian was going to factor in Double or Nothing, and kind of always knew he'd show up here. He's always expected to be cleared in May, and so we signed him, and he rehabbed and got ready, and he had no idea what he was coming in to do. I totally kayfabed him. But he's great. And we were like really believe in him, and strapped a rocket to him, you could say. And I think he's awesome. And like I said, it's going to be Mox versus Cage at Fyter Fest. And I think it's going to be awesome. And I'm really excited. We'll get you more details about Fyter Fest and all the big stuff we're going to have there. But that's the world title match. And I'm really glad that Taz and Cage were able to have that moment now finally. So that's pretty cool. Ideally, we would have been able to do it, have them come in and do something sooner. But, when Brian got injured, this was always what we planned when he told me he was going to be cleared in May.
Next up is Alex McCarthy from Talk Sport.
Awesome. Hey, Alex. How are you?
Hey, Tony. How you doing, man?
Great, man. Thank you for staying up. Thanks for staying up.
Yeah, it's like 5 to 6 here, man. Don't worry.
I know, man. I'm very familiar with the time difference, as you can imagine. I haven't been. Right before Revolution, I was there at Fulham, and then of course things shut down. I haven't been able to get back since, as you can imagine. But I stay in touch with all the guys, and I miss it very much. I miss London. It's like a second home to me. And thanks for staying up. Like I said, I know how hard it is with these shows, these pay-per-view shows.
Well, it wasn't very hard with that show tonight, man.
Thanks, man. That's great to hear. Thank you. That's really kind.
Well, speaking of you coming back over here, I just wanted to touch on,
Fighter Fest. I'll be honest with you guys. I want to let you can break this one, Alex, even though you didn't even ask it, but you'll get the credit for it. So originally Fighter Fest, I was going to do it in London, and we can't do it, and it's just not possible. And we had the plans, and I thought it was going to be our debut, and now you're telling the world, I'm sorry, I wanted to do it, and I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but it was going to be Fighter Fest, and we would have had this great show. There's tons of huge matches we have planned, and obviously, Mox versus Cage is the first thing we've announced, and Fighter Fest was a really successful show for us, both internationally as a pay-per-view and domestically. It was very successful as a BR Live special, and it was actually one of the greatest days for customer acquisition in the history of BR Live. It was up there with the Tiger Woods Phil Mickelson golf match and some of the other big events. I think it was actually second best ever behind the Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson golf match in the history of BR Live customer acquisition. So anyway, we'll have more details about Fighter Fest and when and where and how you'll be able to watch it. And sorry, I didn't mean to jump your question, but anyway, I wanted to mention I wanted to go to England, and we were supposed to with this show that we just announced just now.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome. I mean, that's
Thanks, Alex. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it, man.
Whereabouts roughly were you? Was it going to be Fulham by chance, or what did you have?
I can't say it for sure, Alex. I can't say for sure. But it was gonna be awesome. I really was looking forward to doing it.
Awesome. One day.
Yeah, it'll be awesome when we can do it, and it's safe for everybody when we can do shows where you don't have to test everybody, in here that's coming back here with us.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Great to hear from you.
Okay, the last question for Tony is from Bill Pritchard at WrestleZone.
Great.
Hey, Tony, how are you?
Great, Bill. How are you?
Good. So I wanted to follow up on the Brian Cage and Taz pairing, and just wanted to know kind of what in your mind made it a good pairing. And then on another hand, you had Vicky Guerrero in the crowd, and she's made some commentary appearances, but is she somebody else that you could see in the future having a role similar?
Well, I think it's two separate questions, right? With Taz and Brian Cage, I love the pairing, and it's something we wanted to do for a while. It's the idea that Brian Cage is a big free agent wrestler. He's got all the tools. He's like the guy in the draft that kills the workouts. He's got all the physical tools, and with his strength and his agility and, how impressive of a wrestler he is, like everything Taz brings to the table in terms of being able to bring in legitimacy, being able to bring like wrestling holds and submissions and a new dimension to Brian Cage, but also, obviously Taz is one of the greatest promos in the history of wrestling, in my opinion, in terms of what he was able to do and what he was able to get out of not being the tallest guy or the fastest guy or the strongest guy, but he had a great run and was a very successful, like mainstream wrestler without, again, being like over, a great height or a great speed or even the strongest, biggest guy. So I just think it's a really great pairing, and Taz is going to bring a lot of legitimacy to him. And I hope you dug the music and the Who Can Stop the Path of Cage, which is, it's a legitimate question, and we'll find out at Fighter Fest. And I think we really like Cage, and we were hyped to get him in. And Ryan asked, we'd had this plan for a while to get this going. And some of what happened with Taz and Darby, obviously, Taz was looking maybe to manage Darby, and Darby wasn't interested in any advice from Taz. And when that didn't come off in this big ladder match, instead Taz went to another plan, which is he got a bigger, stronger, and then tonight better guy tonight. I don't know if anybody didn't get any question. I feel bad if there's anybody that didn't get a question. If there's anybody who did, if we can get to, or I can try and address in the future. I don't know if there's anybody still going, Mandy, or if anything I can do, but I really appreciate everybody stayed up and came to this. I hope everybody got their money's worth out of the pay-per-view for either themselves or their media outlet. And I don't know if there's anything else for me to do, Mandy, but it's just great.
No, thank you so much, Tony. And thanks very much to everyone for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks again and have a good night.